Okay. Yep.
Yep. Welcome to Storyteller, the Storyteller. I like to just open up and just start talking. But welcome to Storyteller, the Storyteller. This is where people who tell stories live on stage can get together and we can talk about the craft of storytelling. I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts and I listen to other podcasts, and I was like, well, there's no show for like storytellers, just regular storytellers who go on stages and share our lives to just talk about this process, to talk about this art. So I wanted to kind of start this out. So I know so many different people all around the world with storytelling. So today I'm talking to Dawn Fraser. Dawn Fraser is a friend of mine. Now, I don't remember exactly where we met. When we talk, we can probably get into that. But when we met, we just like immediately clicked. We shared some stages together. We did a lot of workshops together. But I'm gonna bring her in and we can have a conversation about storytelling and who knows where it goes. So let's do that. Doom, doom, doom. Turn that off. I'm still learning this program too, Don. So as I
I feel you,
as I
Shannon. I
learn more
feel
and
you.
more, it's gonna get going. Yeah. But let me say this, Don. What I know about you, and I don't remember exactly where we met, but I think of you as a storyteller for sure, because that's how I know you initially. Us telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
But as
Right.
I kind of kept getting to know you, excellent business person as far as in story coaching, workshops. um we've done many things, like you tell stories, world traveler, telling stories and teaching
Mm-hmm.
storytelling across the world. So I don't know how many languages or whatever, or if it's more languages, I don't know. But I
Only
know I
five, just
look
five.
at I look at I look at social media and I see you places all over the world, but you're teaching and you're doing shows and events and those things. And
Mm-hmm.
but go deeper for me. Like I know those things, but go deeper. Like introduce yourself a little bit, and then what are some of the things that I might not know of, you know?
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, I think I do remember when we met. So it was, I was living in New York, and I remember hearing about this host, Shannon Cason, this infamous black host out in Detroit. And I was like, oh, I was like, who's this Shannon character? I gotta meet him. And then I heard one of your stories. I think somebody from the Moth played one of your stories, and I was like, oh snap, brother's got an edge too. Okay, I like the style. So the Moth had me do a main stage out in I think you had come down from Detroit to Chicago, and I had come out from New York to Chicago. And I think it was either Chicago. I don't think it was Detroit, but I think I met you initially in Chicago hosting a show.
Okay.
And
You
and I was
you
like,
were hosting.
you were hosting, I was
I
chilling.
was
I
okay.
Yeah, you were hosting. Um, and and you know how like you say like when storytellers like first see each other on stage, even though you don't know each other, it's just like, oh, that's my that's my my story boo, my like
Yeah,
my
yeah.
you know.
Yeah. You get to know each other.
Yes.
Because I know that
Right,
when I
right.
first like really like you came to Ann Arbor, and I think I was in
Yes.
Detroit, and I saw
Yes.
you in Ann Arbor, and then I was like, we need to talk more. You know what I'm saying? And then we just started
Right.
talking more. And then I come out to New York, and we'll go get I remember we got some lobster rolls or something somewhere.
Yeah.
We went to some little
Mm.
restaurants and all that kind of stuff, and you showed me
Up in
around Brooklyn a
Harlem.
little bit. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Brooklyn and
Yeah.
Harlem. That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we hung out in Harlem. Yeah, we went to one of the NPR shows was doing something at the Apollo Theater, and we went out there
Yep.
too. So
Yep.
yeah. But what about you?
Yeah. So
How did you end up in where you from originally, and then how you end up in New York and in those places?
yeah, I'm from San Jose. I'm from the Bay Area, like Bay Area, California. Ended up
Uh-huh.
going to school. Like I never thought I would leave California. I was like, "Well, I got everything I need here. I got the beach, I got the ocean, I got some good looking people, I got the sun."
Uh-huh.
But I got into a grad school program in policy. Before any of the storytelling stuff, I thought I was going to be doing like human rights work, saving the world. Uh, Started growing up realizing that that was a lot more difficult than I thought in my 20s.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and the one course that I took in grad school that was just like that was kind of like the trigger to start this whole thing was it was just on public speaking, but it's like one of these classes where you
Okay.
have like 3 times you could do like any type of speech you want to give. Uh, got up and started like doing a couple of different speeches. Realized like I like this is cool. This is the jam. But this is also like towards 2008 when like nobody could get a job, and I couldn't get a job after getting a graduate degree. So I just started volunteering at places like the Moth and places where I saw other people like getting up on stage, because it was kind of cool and I had some free time and I was just doing temp work. Um, and within like a couple of months, probably within the first 2 months or so, some of the staff said like, you're really good at coaching. And this was at a time when like I could not get a job. So I was like,
Okay,
can you
you
all
were out of
hire a
work at
sister?
that time.
I was out of work. I was
Yeah,
out of work,
yeah.
you know.
Let me ask
But
this before you. I want to hear about the coaching thing. What school did you go to, if you don't mind? Did you go to?
th-
Well, in my mind, I'm thinking you were going to Harvard. That's what I think in my head.
I went to Harvard. I did go to Harvard.
That's what I thought. That's what because I
Yes.
think of that sometimes. I'll be like, I think she went. I don't know. Now you confirming, but in my mind, I had
You put
always
me on the
like.
spot, Shannon. You
I'd
put
be
me on
like,
the spot.
no, I'm just saying. In my mind, I used to always think to myself, I'd be like, "Is it Dawn? Dawn went to Harvard, right?" And I know it's a lot of schools that be like the name Harvard. You know, it'd be like Harvard, Harvard
Uh,
community.
Education.
But in my mind, I thought that. Okay, okay, so I am right.
Yeah,
I'm good.
yeah.
I'm
I
right
went
about
to
that.
undergrad at UCLA. I went
Yeah.
to undergrad
Oh
at
wow,
UCLA.
that's heavy too. Shit,
Uh,
you know.
That was fun. That was
Yeah,
fun.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Harvard
So
was
you,
just like, let's just do
but this
this.
is 2008 time, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I graduated in 2004, and then
Yeah,
took a couple years, came down to New York. So after my first job in New York, I was fired, just straight up fired after like, a year of being a director at a cultural arts organization.
yeah.
Uh, and then that's when it's just like shit hit the fan.
No, but
I couldn't get another
2008
job.
was a rough time for a lot of people. You get what I'm saying? It was
Right.
like even with
100%.
great degrees and great backgrounds. I know I went through that time frame of 2008. I was selling shoes. You know, it was
Mm,
people. It was graduates who was doing all kind of things. So you found the art. Well, you had always been interested in the arts. It sounded like, but
yeah.
how did the you say how did you find the Moth? How did you run
Yeah,
across
I
that?
found the Moth because I was bored as hell, like just at home, not working, listening to This American Life. So you know the show This American Life, right?
Of course, yeah,
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 yeah. So I was listening to This American Life. I don't know if the Moth even had a podcast yet, but they had a live recording of, I remember it was Mike Birbiglia telling a story at the Moth about sleepwalking and sleepwalking his way like off of a out of a window, out of a two-story window at a hotel, thinking that he's like the Hulk because he's like, he's like losing his mind. And I was like, listen to the story, like, is this real? Like this man slept walk outside of the window, jumped out the window, pounding on his chest, saying like, "I'm the Hulk, I'm the Hulk," and you could hear like the audience in the background like cracking up, and and I'm thinking to myself, this is on This American Life, so it must be real, but it was being recorded. But it was being
I'm a real
recorded.
storyteller. I be when I be hearing stuff, I be like, but I know how stories work. You get what I'm saying? So I'm sure it's a
Totally,
lot of truth to that
totally.
story. Yeah,
Yeah, no, he turned it into a one person show.
yeah.
But before like the one person show, before like like he really kind of became like a name, I was just like I hear people laughing in the background while he's telling this show, while he's telling the story. I want to go check out whatever that is, and so called them up and called up the Moth, and they were like, "Hey, we have a grand slam tonight." Didn't know what a grand slam was, didn't know what an open slam was, didn't know none of this terminology. But they're like, come out to the show if you want to come, kick it. Went to the show. Um, and next thing you know, I was like, hey, this is some good stuff. Like, who are you all? Like,
Yeah,
what's the deal? I
yeah,
had heard of poetry slams. I hadn't heard of no storytelling slams.
yeah, yeah.
So just started hanging out.
Yeah, yeah. It's a whole community. The whole thing is it becomes a community because the thing is, like, even the background of this, the books,
Hmm.
bookstores, and all that kind of stuff. When you see people who have libraries, you go to their house and they got a lot of books in the background, or they got, you're like, okay, we might vibe because we can talk about all kinds of stuff, or
Yep.
they watch the movie and they go into the depth of what this movie reminds me of, and then they took the part from this movie, and that was actually a 1970s film, and all that stuff. I love that kind of stuff. So I like the Moth to have all these people like that. So I'm like, this the crew I hung with, and I was like a multi cruise in college, in high school
Oh, I
too.
believe
So
it. I
it
can
was
see
like,
everybody adopting Shannon.
yeah, I played basketball, but I wanted the artsy friends, friends who knew all the stuff, so I could see that at the Moth, and that's how I kind of got involved too. But how did
Nice.
you get into the coaching side? Like, when did that start? Because you are, um, um, you're doing significant work on coaching and those things and storytelling coaching. How did that begin? You
Yeah.
said somebody took an interest in you, or somebody
Yeah.
noticed that you were good at it.
Yeah, no, that's when I started volunteering. The roles that they had for volunteers at the time were to be like a coach, meaning you go out to some inner city, East New York schools at 7 o'clock in the morning for first period to work with some kids on some stories. And they were like, "You want to join?" I was like, "You know what? I ain't got nothing else going on." So yes. And little by little, that's when they started recognizing that, well, it was interesting actually because the staff started saying, "Hey, you're good at coaching. So why don't we bring you on board as a contractor, like for some of these gigs?" And then the other funny thing, Shannon, is like the kids started calling me out because they were like, "Hey, miss, you're asking us to tell a story, and to share a story. Well, we haven't heard your story. What's your story? We want to hear yours." And I was like, "I gotta tell a story now." These kids were putting me on the spot, and I was like, "Damn, I guess I gotta take a class or something because the I gotta. If I'm gonna tell people how to tell a story, then I gotta like get some coaching myself, right?"
Yeah, yeah.
So it was a little bit of both at the same time with just kind of volunteering, coaching, telling, getting some, taking a class that I took a class over at a place called the Pit
I
in
know
New
the
York
pit.
City.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah,
performed it before. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
No,
And then from there, like it just started like kind of growing because I realized some of the stuff I had done in grad school, like, public speaking, uh, was storytelling for like, advocacy or storytelling for
mhm,
like a cause, right? It was
mhm.
just wrapped slightly differently. But I started seeing that like all of this stuff, like be it like a crazy story about somebody jumping out of a window, or a story about President Obama at the time, Senator Obama, kind of sharing the story about how he was from Kenya and how his mom's was from Kansas, and they named him Barack. And like you kind of see like all the tools of storytelling, and I started seeing it very clearly in like all these different aspects of life. Uh, and so I was like, all right, well, let me do some stuff with the Moth. Let me do some stuff with like some other organizations, like freelance, just as a contractor. Um, and little by little, I started seeing like, oh, this is actually a business. Like it took like quite a few years before I realized that I was not just a contractor or just a coach, but I could actually like run my own like business behind it.
Yeah.
Um, that took quite a few years, but at the root of it, it was just like listening to people's stories and realizing that people actually will pay
Yeah.
to make sure that they can communicate good. You know.
And I saw that shift with you as well. Like, I knew you
Hmm.
as with stories, but then I saw a business shift where you're still an artist in the storytelling and did events and those things, but then noticing, and I think from your experience in school and probably life and other things, advocacy work that you've done, that storytelling can be, is needed, for nonprofit work,
100%.
for uh, celebrities, speakers, uh,
100%.
workshops, corporations do things on storytelling. So you started to see, I started seeing those shifts and things. And then one time, like, I saw you on TED too. I saw you. How did you
Yes.
book? Because she did an awesome TED talk. And then I'm talking about TED. Like, I did a
Like the Big
TEDx.
Ted.
I did a TEDx. A lowercase TED. She you did the uppercase TED. So how did that come across? Like, how did that come across your desk, and you start working on that?
Ted was just throwing out TED Talks back in the day to anybody who had an idea. So, oh
That's
man, I'm just
funny.
messing.
That's
So that whole thing, interestingly enough, it started off as a story, a story
okay.
about me like being a bad sport at the Special Olympics, which was like so whack of me, so whack.
Go listen
Uh,
to her TED. Look her name up. Put in TED. Listen to her TED. And that part is the funniest part. You know what I'm saying? Because you had the Special Olympics with all your competitiveness.
right, being a sour sport because my brother's not winning. you
Uh-huh.
know. So it started off as a story, and then I saw that TED, actually a friend who had spoken at TED, like another storyteller friend, and I was like, I remember sitting with him at a Moth show, and like we were just kind of like volunteering, like helping check some people into the show, and I was like, yo, how did you do your TED talk? Because once again, it was Big TED, it wasn't like a TEDx, and he told me about this thing called the TED Global Idea Search. And I was like,
Hmm.
what is the global idea search? Or what is that? So I looked it up. And at the time, straight up Shannon, they were looking for people who were like relatively unknown. They were looking for storytellers. They were looking for people who had ideas that it could, impact the way that other people in the world started thinking about things. And I realized that the story that I had was, it could be about me or it could be about you and like what I want you to do in terms of, re-envisioning what it means to win or what it means for like sportsmanship. So straight up applied. 2 years, first year did not get in. Second year I did. Um, and that right there became like a big turning point. That was a big
What
turning
was
point.
the process? What was like when you because I did the TEDx, and the
Yeah.
process was I applied, they accept, and then I did some work or preparation to do it, and we had some uh we had some practices. But what was
Mm.
and then I just kind of went on stage. It wasn't where it was they had a whole process for us for the TEDx because they run those throughout the country, throughout the
Regularly.
world, everywhere.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was the process at that time for the TED talk?
Yeah, it was kind of similar. So, you apply. And the reason why I applied is because they have like two ways to get on Big Ted. One is by nomination, one is to apply to like one of these very once a year kind of idea searches. So, applied, which included like, like a 2-minute video talking about like what's your story, what's your idea, what does it mean for the audience, et cetera, et cetera. Once they accepted the initial like idea, then it was just a matter of them like saying like, okay, we need to like finesse this so it's like a TED talk and not just a story or not just a presentation.
Yeah,
But to be honest with you, it was rather quick. We only met like over the course of about a month and a half before taking the stage, and there were about 26 of us.
wow.
So, and what I didn't also realize is that not all TED Talks, like from the stages, actually go onto the website, like
Yeah,
TED.com or
yeah, that's
or to
true.
the main stage. So, so it was just a lot of really finessing. Like I remember when I went on stage, or when I was getting ready to go on stage, they asked me, "Do you want to use slides?" And I was like, "Hell no! I'm a storyteller. I just talk. I don't need slides." And they were like, no, we want you to use slides. I was like, I was like, okay,
That's
but
a
like,
part of the
what
whole.
kind of
That's a part
slides?
of their whole thing where they had a slide come up. Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. But the good thing is like, it had no words, just images.
Just your
And so I
pictures.
was
Yeah.
like, okay. So then I started to think about how would I tell the story visually if I just had to use the images that I have from my old track and field days from UCLA, of my twin brother, of the Special Olympics. So basically put all that together in about a month and a half, and then we just hit the stage. And
Mm.
I remember when I got on, like I was looking like before I got on stage, Questlove was like picking out his afro. getting ready because I was the first person after intermission, and, and so here, Quest Love is here. I am. I'm just like,
You
oh,
looking at yourself like that's pretty dope, huh? Yeah.
I was like, how come I don't have my camera right now? Where's my phone? But I had a nice
No,
focus
no, no.
on.
I I give props to that, and you did a wonderful job too. Look good up there, just telling your story. And was that your brother who just walked in too?
That was my brother. I was, no, he think he was
Right
like
on
picking up
time,
the
right on
mail or
cue, huh?
something.
Yeah,
Yep,
right on
yep.
cue. That no, but that's awesome. And then going through that experience, being, in developing your story, developing how to pitch for TED or TEDx or
Hmm.
all these other shows, and then being
Hmm.
able to coach others and help others because you do help others to get into TED as well, right? Or TEDx and
Right.
those
Yeah.
things. Yeah, yeah,
Mostly
yeah,
TEDx because there's so many more opportunities than there are for TED.
yeah.
Um, but did I ever tell you how I started working with Common, the
You know
rapper?
what? I listened to that story, and
Uh-huh.
we didn't talked about so many different things, and I find that like even in the story here, right? So like you're telling me now,
Yeah.
you started volunteering at high schools.
Hmm.
You had told stories before, but you wasn't like heavy into the story. And they told you, "Hey, we ain't heard your story yet." And
Right.
then you
Right.
started getting into that, and then your story with Common, which I want you to kind of go into that a little bit. You just kind of jump out there from what I'm hearing um, in those things because I listened to the story in Common, and I know you have a lot more experience in those things now and over time. But I'm saying like, tell a little bit about how you worked with Common on his on some stuff. I don't know.
Well,
What, yeah,
it's like all these leaps have just been by the faith of applying to different storytelling kind of based initiatives. So got the TED Talk that went up on the website, whatever, and then I got an agent. So I had a speaker agent who uh, was okay, like, but truth be told, they were more interested in the fact that I knew how to coach people more so than to put me on stages and pay me.
okay.
Um, but the deal was they were like, look, we won't take any of the money that you earn from coaching other people who are on our roster. So, but some of the people on our roster just, every now and then they need some speech help. It was a win for the agency because they can book that speaker more. The win for me because I'm getting paid as a coach.
Yeah.
Uh, and then all of a sudden, these agents were referring some of their celebrity speakers, which is how one day I'm just like chilling at Starbucks, had not worked with any celebrities or anything whatsoever. And I get a call from this woman who's just like, "Oh yeah, I heard that you're the coach who, we all have the kind of the same agent, and you might be able to work with some other speakers, yada yada yada." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, no problem. I'm sure. Like, I'm thinking I'm going to be talking to some scientists that don't know how to like articulate their message, or some like some brainy people." And then she tells me that the person she's talking about is Common, and I'm just kind of silent because I'm thinking to myself, there's a scientist, a nerdy scientist named Common, right? This isn't like the Common,
Nah, nah, ain't
the
nobody named
rapper.
Common but Common. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's one of my faves. That's one of my favorites too. Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah.
No
So
doubt.
went out to dinner, threw up all over the car because of nerves, and just got jacked up. He didn't care.
Did
He
you throw up
didn't.
in the car?
Oh, I didn't tell you this part of the story.
No, no, no. I know this part of the story because I've listened to your story and you've told me
Okay.
this part of the story. But
Yes.
so you okay, you're supposed to be Common's coach. You're supposed to be
Yes.
Common's coach. Go from there. What happens to how you get to throw up in
So
the car? 'Cause
he's
you gave
like,
away the end of this.
I know, I know.
But that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. How did you get to
I,
that?
I was nervous as all hell, and he was coming to do a speech in Jersey. And so, like, as we were getting to know each other, he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna come out to Jersey. Why don't you come check it out and see what you think of my current speech?
Give him some
And then
feedback.
we'll like, yeah, giving me some feedback. We'll go out to dinner afterwards and we'll kind of chat." Great. He comes to Kane University, but Shannon, like, he comes out to the stage to a standing ovation. You know, So I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to
What am I gonna
tell?
teach? What am I gonna teach comedy?
Hello,
Yeah,
hello.
yeah, yeah.
What am I going to say? And of course, like everyone's asking for a signature for pictures. One kid is like, excuse me, are you Common's mama? And I'm like, am I Common's mama? Like, I'm younger than Common. But I was just like, clearly people don't know who I am. I don't know
Yeah.
who the hell I am, like being backstage critiquing this man's work. But anyways, long story short, we go out to Red Rooster for dinner. And celebrities don't pay for food. They
That's
don't pay for
Harlem,
liquor.
right?
Yeah, it's in Harlem.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I've been there. I've been there. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I
that's
think
a that's
we
the
may
you
have
go
been
to the
nearby
cool
there.
spot because everybody in there. That's like a normal. Yeah,
Everybody. We
yeah.
straight we just walk right in. There's like a line, but people just like, here,
Did
come.
we go
Here's
to
a
Red
table.
Rooster?
Here's the
We
food.
might have went
We
to.
did. I think we have. I think we have.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Um, but I was still broke. I was still getting my Starbucks drinks as like my full meal for the day kind of days.
So
So
you
I
look,
was,
you was happy. You was happy to be getting these drinks, wasn't you? All these free drinks and everything. The night on the town with Carmen, you like, yeah, I'll take another. I'll take it.
bring it on. Shoot, I'm not paying. you know. Um, and had a great conversation. But like as we were driving home, he was in the front seat, I was in the back seat in his driver, and it was cold as hell, and I just felt like like my stomach was just messed up. We almost made it home, Shannon. We almost made it home. We were heading over the Brooklyn Bridge, and I just had
Oh,
to roll down the window and just started like yakking, and just like started just went streaking down the side of the vehicle. Um, and like the next day, I still have the text message. I was, I took a selfie. I took a picture with Common because I was like, he's not gonna want me as his coach after this.
how
But I
did
need a
he?
picture to prove.
He was gracious about it. I mean, he obviously took a picture with you. He wasn't. He didn't. You got to
He
get
was
out here on the
okay.
Brooklyn Bridge and walk your ass home. That's
Well,
what's
fortunately,
up.
where I was living, like, was right on the other side of the bridge, so
That's
we
what's
took a
up. But
picture.
okay, so you had those experiences, and you may have worked with other, but you worked with a few different people. So you that's from the start, but at the same time, over the course of time, you've been working with a lot of people in
Right,
helping their speeches or helping their keynotes in certain ways as well, haven't you?
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that became like the beginning of what I saw as like the business, because all of a
Hmm.
sudden I had like these agents who were sending me like celebrity speakers from like Common to Lori Greiner from Shark Tank, Jackie Cruz from Orange is the New Black. There's all these celebrities. So that was like kind of like one branch of things. Then I had like my like community stuff that I was doing, like community organizations I was doing with like the Moth and organizations like that. And then a bunch of people wanted to know about the TED and how to get onto a TED stage. And so little by little, I started seeing that there were different needs within
Yeah.
the general population around storytelling, depending on like where they were in their own kind of personal journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and considering like I needed some cash, I was like, let me learn how to become like a CEO or an entrepreneur, and to
Hmm.
bring some of these offerings together. Uh, utilizing the skills that I had started building with like different programs, different clients, different coaching that I received from TEDx and from the
Yeah.
Moth and Story Studio. So yeah, little by
Yeah.
little, it started coming together.
No, same thing with me. Like when you have certain experiences, you learning that experience is transferable, or you going through it, you can help others who may not be in that. You can teach, like working on so many different main stage story shows with the Moth and Snap
Hmm.
Judgment, and also Risk, and all these
Right,
other shows that I've been a part of.
right.
And everybody has their process in helping you tell your story. And I'm always open to it because I've learned so many other people's methods, and then have developed a lot of my own methods, but you can use a lot of those methods to help others refine their stories. I remember I was working with um, somebody at the Moth had passed me on, Meg Bowles. Thank you, Meg. She had passed me on to a company and I had worked with. It was a LeBron James company, and they said
Oh,
the
right.
guy said they brought it me up. He said, "Yeah, I was talking to LeBron and I was talking about you, and you was going to help with storytelling." I was like, "You was talking to LeBron about?" I was like, "You was talking to LeBron about me?" Yeah, yeah. But they were the coolest company because uninterrupted, and I was going out to all these different sports players, and
Hmm.
they had an app at that time where they were supposed to be doing like stories, like they were supposed to be storytelling. It was just kind of like Instagram, but this was before like social media had took root, but new players were trying to come in. It wasn't like
Hmm.
there was no room for anybody else. So they had started the app at first where people would tell their stories. And I was going around to all these athletes and just kind of telling them some of the keys of storytelling or good storytelling. So I would see,
What?
and they were telling me yeah, we got to get you in with Odell Beckham. We got to get you in with, we got
Hey.
to get you in with, Gronk. We got to get you in with, Serena. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, go
Ooh,
ahead and do
child.
that. I was like,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I was like, go ahead and send me. But the coolest thing about that company too, I'm a new fledgling company. I'm just kind of starting out doing some of these business things, but they would want me in places like that. Like, we need you in
Mhm.
Utah tomorrow. We need you in
Damn.
this, whatever city in Philadelphia this next day. And
Whew.
I'm like, man, the ticket to Utah was like $1,500. And I told the guy straight up, I was like, hey, I'm kind of just starting at this. And they put me on their travel plan and just kind of like
Oh,
deducted
okay.
it or whatever. But it showed
Right.
me a lot on how LeBron and Maverick Carter and all them run their business. Like they do make a way for newer businesses and
Mhm.
businesses that's underrepresented as much to be a part of their to be a part of their organization. And it was just a great ordeal. They passed me on to other companies that I work with. I almost helped Buster Rhymes
Yep.
tell a story for uh,
What?
for a thing. But then I was like, I can't teach. Buster Rhymes I listen to Buster Rhymes in his storytelling. I'm like, I ain't gonna teach
Buster
Buster
has his
Rhymes how to tell a
like I'm
story, but I
telling
will go
you.
meet Buster Rhymes if you want me to. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
almost had the opportunity to meet Ti.
To do something with
Um,
Ti in his storytelling. Ti
yeah,
Ti's
yeah,
gotten pretty good at speaking and all those things. I've noticed over the time. Yeah, yeah,
absolutely. And that's the
yeah,
funny thing is like I think that you probably also see you see like that some of these celebrities are really great at one medium. Like it might be like music or it might be television or it might be something else. But then for whatever reason, when it comes to telling a story on stage, like getting up in front of a microphone, especially without any notes, it becomes a different beast for some people. And
yeah,
I'm sure you've seen that, like when you actually have to put yourself in the role of the teacher, like the person who's educating or the one who's coaching, that your own storytelling also becomes stronger. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. Teaching
um,
always teaches the teacher and always helps. That's the big thing about anything is teaching. You know it
right?
as an educate. Yeah, yeah. Been a lot of education. When you start to be able to teach somebody else, then you really drive it home.
Absorb it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's what I've observed about you is like, like you've been going out there, like working all these different type of companies as well. But your storytelling and your comfort with it, and also all these different mediums. Like I'm so curious about like how you keep so many stories fresh and in the canon, like ready to just rock out at any point in time. Um,
Yeah,
because I often like I feel like you're proactive with your stories, whereas I like wait for a theme and then I have to think backwards. Okay, let me think back to a time that I was engaged in sports or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, so I'm kind of curious about your whole process and how you do you just kind of like catalog your story, just kind of keep a track of them
Well,
and
I have an advantage, right? So I have one advantage as far as in storytelling. All my stories, most of every story that I've done for like larger stages or larger podcasts, they've
Mhm.
always been homemade stories first. So
Okay.
my advantage is like I'm doing stories for my own podcast. And then when somebody asked about like I had a story, downstairs neighbors, that was in the Moth book, and we did a lot of main stages on that one. But it was a story in
On your
my
podcast,
podcast had been in there for like years. So when they had asked for a
right?
story, I kind of just look at my podcast stories and say, well, this one might work. you know. So having the
Nice.
podcast has always helped me to always have things on hand, because it's like, over 100 stories right there, just I can pull from to find something
Smart.
that might work.
Smart.
But you was talking about like working with companies and telling stories and helping others tell stories. Some of the companies you've worked with, and I brought up some like that I've been on, and we kind of go back and forth on that a little bit, but you be blowing it out. It's never a competition with me. I'm always like this. But when you brought us in for these huge, like largest company in the world type stuff, I
Hmm.
so what's some of the companies that you've worked with, as far as in coaching, storytelling, and just coaching, speaking in general? Just name a few.
Yeah, man. Well, the big one, the big elephant that we brought in, that was Google, and that was at least 4 to 5 different sessions for about at least 100 employees each time. A lot of
Wow,
that was during the pandemic. But I've worked with like Spotify, Vox Media, um, Pearson Education, which is kind of like the Kaplan, like
that's the
they
big
do all
one.
those like
Yeah,
major books. Yeah. Merck, the medical kind of company. Um, gosh, I've done stuff with the U.S. government, the federal government. You know, all kinds of
that's
Harvard. Went
huge.
back to Harvard, and yeah,
That's
it's
huge.
been
Yeah.
it's been wild. I'm now doing stuff with Stanford University. So it's Gates Foundation was one that just wrapped up about a month ago. Um,
Did you
it's
just speak somewhere?
wild.
Did you just do a keynote somewhere?
Oh, I did a keynote for Google. Uh, the stuff that Google's about to come out with, Shannon, is wild. But and that's the interesting thing is like, so Google hits me up and they're like, "Hey, we're going to be doing this conference about AI, and we want you to come in and work with with our like our chief marketing people to be able to sell the story of AI to other companies like Dell and United and like 3M and Home Depot." And so I was like, hold on, one quick second. You all know that I know nothing about AI, right? Like I've effed
We
with
want
like
you to know
Chat
about
GPT,
storytelling. Yeah.
but they wanted to know about storytelling because they know that they have like a whole suite of products that are about to come out, and they want people to understand how to share the story, even though we all know that AI has some complications with like privacy and data, and we don't really know where it's going. But it also has huge potential to really make things a lot easier for creatives, for researchers. So yeah, they're like, we have to kind of share this story so that we can get some people on board. So can you just work with us just to share the story? Like you don't need to know anything about AI, but how do our people share the stories to other stakeholders and that kind of whatnot? So
Yeah.
yeah, I was a closing keynote for Google's boot camp, a chief marketing officer boot camp.
Wow.
Um, just like it just keeps coming, bro. It just keeps
Yeah.
coming.
Into that, like let's dive into that just a little bit. Just a little
Yeah,
bit. Like
yeah.
how does one go about, because I think it goes into what you just said, like it just keeps coming. But how does one dive into booking a Google, a Merck? How does that happen?
I'm a, and this is like so storytelling related. I am a big believer now that a lot of the work that I've gotten has been because of word of mouth. Um, but that I think it's a matter of getting that first one. That first one I think came because I submitted my name into like a database, like of like like all these different companies are always looking for like minority businesses to work with, right? Or female-led businesses, or just contractors in general. And so I learned about like this database where you can submit yourself as an independent contractor to do like, professional training of writing or, engineering or whatever kind of support that they might need from the outside. And they gave me a shot. They gave me a shot for like 18, small gig, $5,000.
Yeah,
Work with like 20 of our people for like 20 minutes. I'm sorry, for 20 of our people for about 2 hours. And from there, I was like, I all I had to do was guarantee that I did a kick-ass job and that they would refer me if I did so. So that was the first domino. After that, it was all word of mouth.
that's
They
what it's
contacted
about.
another organization, I kept on asking what other lines of business might need some assistance. And this most recent one, ironically, did not come from any of those last coaching gigs. It actually came from somebody else, like a another storytelling friend, who knew that I had done stuff for Google,
Yeah,
and she has a sister-in-law who works at Google, and so she was like, Dawn Fraser has done stuff at Google. I think you should hit her up. So because there's so many different divisions that are like doing similar things that sometimes they don't communicate with each other,
no, it's a
but
huge organization, and that's the thing about it too. It's like killing those opportunities when you get them. Doing your best or whatever. You don't say killing them, but just doing your job or whatever. But
right.
also, it's like one of those things of when you're thought of for storytelling, or when somebody thinks of storytelling, they'll think of so because it becomes a buzzword for us in some businesses, and storytelling to be is forever here, but like working with those organizations is amazing, and being able to get those kind of contracts and deals is great. And I've seen it too, not on
Hmm.
but just different speaking engagements, and being able to work on storytelling with so many different companies and organizations, and even nonprofits. Like I do a lot of nonprofit work now, and
Right.
nonprofits are huge. You think of nonprofits, the Gate Foundation might be, it'd be
Yeah.
foundations and huge things. You're like, okay, and
Yeah.
it's a great opportunity too to pass on storytelling, but it's a great for artists, artist entrepreneurs as well. Yeah, yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And thank
Everybody
you for
needs it.
bringing me in on Google.
Of
When we was in
course.
Google, we was talking to there was people all over the world. So I appreciate you for that, Don.
Oh
That was a
man.
wonderful experience.
For anybody watching this stream right now, people love them some Shannon. Like I can't take Shannon nowhere without people like in the reviews afterwards for this Google game. People were like, "We love Shannon. We want him to be our friend. Can we keep him?" Like, no, mofo's, you can't keep him. He's mine.
Now pass me on to Google. Pass me. Tell them to take me whenever they want to. But we pass a lot of stuff on to one another. Because it'd be like
Indeed.
certain
Yep.
things that I feel you may be more associated with. So I'm like, Don would be great for this, and then the same with me. So
Vice
I really
versa.
appreciate that, because that's a big part of it as well, the networking of it. Like you saying, you
Right.
got that one position through somebody who knew that you had done work with Google. So all those things come
100%.
to mind. Yeah, yeah,
100%,
yeah,
100%. And
yeah,
yeah, and so, but I've also been trying to take a note from you because I know that like word of mouth marketing is not, it's not the best way to continue to sustain a business. I do hear that like some people like, the social media, and the posting and, the cadence of actually like, doing a show or just kind of keeping your stuff like out there
yeah.
is
You got to.
excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
know,
Got to hit the stage so often, just to be on stage. Like I got a show. Like you just came back from hosting a show, and then I
right.
got a show, in a couple weeks. Then I got another show in a couple weeks, in a couple weeks after that. But I like to always stay on stage so I don't feel out of place when I go
Right.
on stage. I want to go up there and be like, I ain't did this in a while, Yeah,
Back like
so
the
I try to.
pandemic days when we were like, oh boy,
Yeah, everybody
this is
doing them
going
online like this, Yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
right.
Who are
Yep.
your influences? Do you have certain influences or inspirations as far as in storytelling or even in business? I don't know.
Hmm.
Is there certain people who inspire you or like your influence?
Yeah, no doubt. It's funny though because most of them are not like famously known people. They're kind of like, my business coach. Her name was Jerisha Hawk. She's from Detroit, actually, millionaire. From understanding how to coach effectively and how to do it well and how to like get people to attract the right type of people to your business, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then from the storytelling side, there's a couple of like storytellers out of South Africa. You might know. Do you know Sisonke Msimang? Um,
Did you have her as part of the Google?
no,
I
she's
don't
on a
know that.
TED
I don't know who
Talk.
you. Yeah.
No, okay. I've met some just like some fascinating minds and people from around the globe, and I get really inspired by stuff typically that is sometimes not even U.S. based. You know, I think we can find ourselves kind of like running around the same circles, some of the same narratives here in the States. So the inspiration I get, like when I was doing barbershop stories, and those other kind of things, that was all like inspired from just like really like leaning into like the culture of barbershops, the people who I hear stories from that were always hanging out in the barbershop, great storytellers, but probably wouldn't be on stage. uh, so I feel like a lot of my inspiration aren't necessarily famous people, but they're people who are just kind of like locals who are doing it and
Yeah.
don't know the genius of their creativity and their words, or they do and they've made a business out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about the genius of the creativity and stuff. I like that. Okay,
Okay.
so I got this segment where I want you to tell a story. But this isn't. There's no pressure on this story. We can talk the story out if you want to, but I'm
Okay.
calling it. I didn't have a name for it. I was just calling it story prompts for the longest. But now I'm gonna call it "Be Brutally Honest" because I do brutally honest storytelling is my thing. So be brutally honest. Now I
Yeah.
have categories. So I'm gonna set
Oh
a
boy.
category since
Oh
we in
boy.
holiday time. It's like
Okay.
three categories. You pick a category, and then I'm gonna tell you some prompts. And if a story comes, you can go with that, or you can say pass, and you can go to another prompt.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, I'm
but
on the
but
spot.
but
Okay, here we
but
go.
here's the categories. The categories I
Mm,
have is food. Food
mm,
is a category because it's the holiday time.
mm-hmm,
Gratitude. Thanksgiving
mm,
just passed, gratitude, and
mm-hmm.
then cuffing season. And I don't have to explain cuffing season to you. That's relationship. You know barbershop talk, you know what cuffing season is.
Oh, I sure
So
do.
so what between those three,
Ooh,
food, gratitude, cuffing season. And then I give some prompts.
okay. Man, I'm somewhere on the border between food and cuffing season. Um, ooh, this is hard. Let's try food.
I like that. I like that. I like that. Okay, so first prompt is a story about the first time you tasted something new. A story about the first
Mm,
time you tasted something new. Anything come to mind on
yes.
that? Oh, look at
Have
that!
you?
See, you talk to a
I'm like,
storyteller. That the first prompt go hit him. Yeah. What you
oh
got?
man. Have you ever tried Moroccan food?
If I did, I don't know. I did. I got all these spices in my cupboard, but I
Uh-huh.
don't know what they usually are. I just be trying stuff. But if I did, I probably don't know I did. So I'm
Okay,
gonna say no.
okay. You say no. Okay, no problem. So this past summer, for the first time in my adult life, or actually in the first time in my life, I did a tour of Europe, right? Um, and part of it was done in Spain. Now, my friends were like, if you're going to spend all this time this close to Spain, you need to go to Morocco because it is nothing like the rest of Europe. Of course, it's North Africa. It's Muslim, and it's just very, very different. And so I was like, all right, bet. And
You
so
up for
jumped
adventure, huh? Yeah.
always down for an adventure. It's like who lives in Morocco? What are these people about? What is the food about? Like, let's go. It's in Africa, let's do it. So jumped on a plane from Spain down to Morocco, and like they have these. Imagine like a huge clay pot. It's like like a clay color, and they put like chicken and rice and like, but I mean like spice beyond spice, peppers, like all this kind of stuff, and they cook it in like this clay pot, with like a kind of a fancy like kind of a top to it, and you're just like looking at it because it takes a long time to sit in this pot because you have to get the pot all warmed up. Imagine almost like a pizza, like almost a fresh open
Big oven?
fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and Shannon, Shannon, mm, salivating just thinking about this mess. Like chicken tagine. I mean, it is probably one of the best meals, best foods I've ever had, ever. I wanted to like, but the thing is, like, in order to eat it, you have to, or to cook it. I mean, you actually need a tagine, like this little
So
pointy
it's
clay
not
pot.
the same unless it's in something in that clay big pot that they had it
It, unless
in.
it's in the tagine, it's not chicken
Yeah,
tagine.
I
Yeah.
got you. I got you. Yeah. Well, how
Um,
did they serve it? How was it served? Is it just on a plate or is it in a bowl? Or
yeah, yeah. You
I'm
pretty
trying
much
to
just take it,
imagine.
you scoop it out of the tagine, out of the clay pot, and you just put it on your plate. But it's at that point it's just infused with all of the incredible seasonings, you know. And then they usually like have like tea, and they'll take the tea and they kind of do like one of these very high, like they'll serve it like super high, make it all like bubbly and frothy. I'm like,
Yeah,
why?
yeah,
Why are you like lifting the water up? Like the water, like the cup is here, and like the water is like way down, you know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, they have all these ways of like serving the food, of eating it. That was very kind of imagine like Middle Eastern, African spice
Hmm.
deliciousness. It
Have you have
was
you have you
incredible.
tasted anything close to it since you've been there? Like going to the Moroccan carry out down the street? Is it has it been close? Have you found the Moroccan
I
carry out
haven't
down the
found
street?
them. No, we tried to recreate it. So one of my homegirls got so into it. She's like, you know what? I'm gonna get a tagine and bring it down to where we live,
Uh
because
huh.
she loved the food too. So she made some, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't
It wasn't.
bad.
It wasn't
It
bad.
wasn't bad.
It
Yeah.
wasn't that, but it wasn't bad.
It wasn't Moroccan, but it was a damn good
It was
attempt for
still
me to
good.
feel
It
back
was
at
still
home.
good. No,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful story. I love it. I love it, and I love all your travels too, and how you kind of just make adventures out of the travels that you go on. I look at you on social media sometimes, and I know like people with social media, they might not be exactly where they at when they're showing it, which is smart, which is smart. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I do see, you a lot of different places throughout the world. What's the most far away or interest, like one of the more interesting places you've been? Not saying like London or Spain, or like what's some
Yeah.
place that I wouldn't think of,
Wouldn't know.
that you've been,
Yeah.
and even telling
Yeah.
stories or not telling stories, just in general.
So about like maybe like 7 years ago at this point, the Moth brought me on to do a gig in Tanzania. Um, and and so I was
That's it
like,
right there, Tanzania. You tell us. Yeah, I would say
but
that
then
that's a yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but did you know about this little island off the coast of Tanzania called Zanzibar?
I've
Uh,
heard of
and,
it. Yeah.
yeah, Zanzibar. Imagine like a Caribbean island with like an African twist, and like very small, like cars and bikes and that kind of stuff, but small enough to kind of get around the entire island in the day. But some of the best swimming, like you're not too far from like elephants and rhinos and cheetahs and lions and all these other things that like run wild in Tanzania. And it was, I mean, the Tanzania was gorgeous. And I was like, I can't believe I'm here, like getting like paid to work with people on stories. It was
No, that's
ridiculous.
amazing. I love it. I
Yeah,
love it. I
yeah.
love it.
Africa, you just got to get to Africa in general.
I
It's
get you. Yeah, yeah.
incredible.
I I
Yeah.
I keep Tanzania and Zanzibar in mind when I
There
when
you
I
go.
when I go.
And
Yeah,
Morocco.
yeah. And then the Moroccan food. What
Yes.
you got coming up next? Anything coming up next? What's coming up next for you?
Yeah, well, I'm now an advisor for TEDx at Stanford. Uh, so a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be doing is coaching people's stories for that upcoming event, which is going to be April of next year. So once again, I got the coaching hat, and I got the hosting hat. I'll be hosting First Person Stories, which is this new initiative based out of Berkeley, California. And it looks like I'll be hosting that in January. Like the official kickoff is January 26th. I want to say I need to double check the dates, but
Yeah, yeah. First,
but
what's it called
yeah,
again? First,
first person.
first person,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
TEDx Stanford. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
you're good at it too. You're definitely good at it, and I'm always honored whenever we work on something together, and it's always fun. You bring a fun, just a genuine, authentic energy to it. You know, you don't. It's never. You don't. You're not to pull your hair out and everybody going crazy. You just more like, let's get it
Well,
done.
I mean, it's gonna be what's gonna be. So might as well have
Yeah,
fun with it because
yeah.
these are our lives. These are stories. We're just kind of like putting ourselves out there on stage and hoping that people love us in return. You know.
Nah. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. How can people stay in touch with you? What's I'm gonna have things in the description, but how can people stay in touch?
Yeah, I've mostly been using a lot more LinkedIn lately. So on LinkedIn, it's backslash Dawn Fraser, DAWN FRASER,
Yeah.
or on my website, which is dawnjfraser.com.
What's the J stand for?
Joelle.
Joel.
Yes.
I
I
always
was
notice
coming
that
through.
J in there. I'm not gonna say J when I'm saying your name, but at the same time, I've always noticed that J. It must be a lot of Don Frasers, So I get it. I get it.
Oh, well, the thing is, Dawn Fraser is a very famous Australian swimmer, but she's
Yeah,
a white
swimmer.
woman.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. And and so but the funny thing, I was just going to mention that the other day I was coming back from the Dominican Republic, and I have global entry, so I was just kind of like breezing through customs, but the customs officer was like, "Hey, do you have anything to declare?" And I was like, "Nope, I have nothing to declare." He's like, "Except for them jewels, huh?" And he's like, "Go ahead and go." And I was just like, "That's my middle name." He's like, "Yes, I know." And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
of
Yeah,
course
they
you
know
do."
everything as you coming through. They probably, probably know what you ate yesterday or whatever.
Right. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
But yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate you doing this, Don.
Yeah, thanks for having me on board. Like I can't wait to just like, see what more you come up with because you're always doing creative stuff. So I always appreciate you.
No, got to keep it going. Got to stay active. So thank you, everyone. You're listening to Storyteller, the Storyteller. Me and Don Fraser just shooting the stuff about storytelling and traveling to Zanzibar and Moroccan food and all that good stuff. Make sure you
Mm.
listen to Shannon Cason's Homemade tomorrow. It's going to be featured on the CBC podcast playlist, I think it's called, on CBC. So first Shannon Cason's Homemade feature, on the CBC. So look out for that. I'll be
Congrats.
sharing that on my social media. But thank you so much, Don, again. And hold on for 1 second for me. We go
Yeah, no
talking.
problem.
Yeah.
Mm. Now that's homemade.